Hi, good afternoon, and welcome back. Um, has Ben joined us?
I'm here.
All right, can we see him as well on the screen? Or oh, yes. Hi, how are you?
Hi, everyone.
Hey Ben, I promise this is more than 5 people in the room. We're not counting the tech stuff. It's more than 5 people.
Right after lunch, very difficult to get people, but thank you all for being here. And this is a very interesting session because this is a session wherein we're going to talk about two measurement partners collaborating to create greater impact for the client. When I heard about it the first time, when Maya and Ben told me about it, my first question was, why? How did you think about doing this? But before that, let me quickly introduce the two of them. So Maya Koleva is the head of research and insights at Commetric. I can tell you every time I attend any of her presentations, I have at least two new things that I learn, and I go back and try and implement that. And then we have Ben Levine. Ben is director and senior partner with True Global Intelligence at FleishmanHillard, UK. Ben was also one of the core team members when M3 Mapper was created. And thank you, Ben. He couldn't be here with us today personally, but he's joining us virtually, so thank you for that. So let's get started. So my question again to you, how did you think about working together, and why did you think about working together? As two different companies, why did you think that you'll be able to create better impact for the client?
I don't
I'm
know.
happy to start, Maya.
Yeah, sure do.
Sure. So, so for those in the room, but it's great. I just want to say how much I wish I could be there with you all. So sad not to be at this year's summit. But to answer your question, Aseem, so Maya and I both work on a global pharmaceutical client. And that client, has many different, interests, from corporate interests to, product and brand, and to try and do good in the world. So there's many different work streams. And the reason we started working together is that our client had a couple of, business and communications challenges that came up, namely, one was, from a corporate perspective, how could they better communicate with corporate media and tell their financial story and growth story? And then for part of their generics business, it was really how could they better track and measure their reputation and taking into account a lot of different work streams. So, presented with those challenges, I think both, Maya and ourselves from our organization at FleishmanHillard, which, for those who don't know, global PR agency, kind of working with this particular client primarily in that capacity, with support, of course, from the TGI team when it comes to research and analytics, and then, Maya and Commetric, kind of bringing that media intelligence. We realized that to help answer these challenges, we had to work together. Like there was what Maya and team brought to the table was that really, having worked at this particular client for several years, deep insight, expertise, and just knowledge about, how, what was happening within media, how they were performing, and how that performance, kind of was relative to goals and objectives. Um, so we needed that insight to help answer those challenges. And so rather than us, as an insight and analytics team within Fleischmann trying to answer those on our own, we knew we had to turn to Maya to work together to help answer these questions.
And it's been really rewarding because sometimes almost any client would have multiple agencies partnering with them. And being close to the other peers makes us understand the client needs better. And obviously, Fleischmann, as a PR agency, they're much closer to the strategic thinking and to the actual comms activities, which helped us understand better what exactly we need to measure, what kind of data that we need to provide, and what kind of data points would be useful and would make sense. So that was one of the reasons we were very enthusiastic. And of course, having the chance to work alongside a legend like Ben, that's fantastic.
Is there anything, Ben, that you would like to tell us about what this campaign was all about?
Yeah, so The first one, as I said, this particular client, it was they wanted to tell a better story in financial media. So they wanted to engage with different journalists and media outlets to really just kind of gain intelligence into kind of what drove their news agenda, what they would be interested in them. So it was all about just trying to help our PR practitioners do their jobs a bit better, right? Around core kind of media relations. So in order to do that, we needed my and team's help on looking back historically at some of that coverage to really understand where and how this client was getting picked up within media, and help to identify some other, journalists and outlets that perhaps on different topics that we should be thinking about. And so that we combine that with our own, some additional kind of research that we did from a social media perspective, working with our account team partners to get that media relations expertise. So it was really a strategic endeavor on that particular challenge. And the second one I mentioned, it's more of an ongoing one for a part of their business that they're just interested in really trying to bring together different, let's say, data sources across media, social, and elsewhere to try to tell a more holistic picture of reputation. So, Commetric and what they deliver from a media intelligence perspective, we knew was key for that. So we've been working with them and not trying to reinvent the wheel for a client, but leverage and make use of the great work that Commetric was already delivering for them.
And that's a key point. I mean, we, in both cases, Ben's team could have done some of this work themselves, but that would have ultimately costed more money to the client. And we're conscious that all clients need to make sure that they get the most value out of all of their partnerships and all of their agencies. And I guess most clients I have worked with specifically really appreciate the transparency that we could have when we kind of say, okay, let's work together, let's work with our partners, let's see what else is done. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, we don't want to repeat something that's been done already by someone else, and we can just build up on this. And this is exactly what happened with this journalist research. We were using and reusing data that we already had, and we had produced this research for the client, and then Ben's team built on this with the additional data streams, with the additional primary research, with the additional very much closer and tactical perspective as a PR agency.
All right. And for a minute, I'm going to imagine that probably you were using the integrated evaluation framework to run this campaign. And the framework has multiple parts to it. How did you divide the work to avoid any duplication? So is it like objective and inputs is something that one team was owning, and then, or was it a multifunctional team, as in everybody got together and worked together?
I guess it could work both ways. I mean, in one of the campaigns that we worked, there was a concentrated effort to start from the beginning and set it up together collaboratively. But in most cases, I represent a measurement partner. So, for instance, we would be quite, I guess, able to help put some of the data points in the input section, and then put quite a lot of data points in the outputs and outtakes and outcomes sections. But we have to understand the objectives, and the objectives would sit normally with the client, with the PR partner, and of course then all of the activities. I mean, someone needs to tell us what those activities are, or we can be shooting in the dark, which is never the best approach.
And I'm sure in this process, you may have stepped on each other's toes a few times. So were there any challenges?
Have we been? I don't think so in our specific case, right?
Yeah, not too strongly. I mean, I think, in this particular case or any situation, so, we've, through my career, not just within Fleischman, but previously at Ketchum, we've had similar working relationships with client partners who work on be it providing media intelligence, for example. So, I mean, I think challenges are probably very aligned, Aseem, to kind of best ways of working, right? So it's, avoiding this idea that I think can happen sometimes, particularly in agency, that we can do it all, that we're here to be full service, soup to nuts, for our clients. So I think avoiding that kind of disease of me mentality and just, as Maya was kind of explaining there, even using the framework as a way to kind of really have clear roles and responsibilities about the way that you're kind of supporting a client. I think it's also clear communications and establishing kind of ways of working early are always good. And then I think the third thing to kind of avoid stepping on toes is to just always have the best interest of your client in mind, right? We're doing this to, not just make money, let's say, for our agencies or deliver great work from an agency or supplier perspective, but we're there to really ensure that our clients are getting the most value out of the services they buy. And I think if you take that client-centric mentality, you find that you're not stepping on each other's toes. But I think you'd probably agree that when that may happen, either in this relationship or others, that it probably comes down to when we're not communicating clearly or not having those kind of regular touch points.
And this kind of cross-agency collaborations can happen either from the very beginning. We can, let's say, go to pitch together and win a client together, or we can meet when already client relationship is established. This is what happened with Ben and my team, because we already had our separate paths to this client, and the client introduced the environment that enabled and encouraged collaboration. To an extent, you can even say demanded collaboration, but in fact, it came along quite naturally. And part of the reason is that, of course, we knew each other already, and we already respected each other. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges in any potential scenario, is not just stepping on each other's toes, but also, is there going to be enough respect between the partners? Or is someone might be a little bit too arrogant, which I personally am guilty of sometimes. I have been a little bit arrogant when approaching a potential partner with an already established client relationship. But then I felt, okay, that shouldn't be the case. I mean, they are actually bringing value in their own right, and we should be better together and better for ourselves, better for the client. And I think this is one of the greatest things as an outcome for all of us as AMEC members, that we get to meet here and we get to know each other and we get to eventually even respect each other, which is amazing. And yeah, so this definitely could be a challenge. But I'm glad that I have personally made an effort to overcome it. And I'm not seeing this from partners. Like Ben didn't start our client collaboration with, you know who I am? I authored the M3. What have you done in your life?
Okay, so most of the challenges you talked about are softer challenges. But let's come to data, and let's come to frameworks that we use, beliefs that we have as companies. Was there any disconnect at any time?
We do use different tools, different data sources, and this sometimes can pose a challenge if we have consistency in the data. But if you flip it, it can also be a positive, because we can then test accuracy of our data. We can supplement. So, yeah, this could work out actually in the long run in a positive way.
All right, and
Ben? I think you're thinking. You want to say something? To you?
Well, I was just gonna add quickly to that I think both being AMEC members, both attending summits and really adhering to and living and breathing, best practice through AMEC, I think helps mitigate some of those challenges, Aseem. But I can say, and from an agency perspective, this is working with perhaps partners that sit outside of AMEC or sit in other disciplines. I've run into challenges where they have certain perceptions about what PR is and what it delivers, and so sometimes when you work in those integrated situations, you get a little, I guess, the value of what that function brings and the way it can be measured is somewhat diminished, right? And they kind of play it down. Oh, it's just about volume of coverage, and I hate, or just focused on impressions. You're just about kind of getting the word out. So I think I see more of those challenges with folks outside of the AMEC world, or who perhaps haven't really put in, best practice media measurement and think of it from that perspective.
All right. So, Ben, for all the 150 people in the room today, if we want to do something similar and create an impact bigger than what we are able to create independently, are there any tips that you have so that our program is also successful?
Sure. I think I touched on it. I might have been a bit premature in some of my tips before, but I think you start with the client. So I think if, whether or not, as Maya was alluding to, sometimes we'll partner together, which we've done in the past, where an opportunity comes in and we find the right media intelligence partner and we pitch a client together. Very clear that you're focused on client need there. But I think in our situation, as Maya was explaining, this is a large, global client, many different work streams, lots of different agencies, and we kind of found our way to one another as we both got onboarded with the relationship, probably more so from our side as that ramped up. So I think if you come at it with a focus on what's best for the client in terms of what they're trying to achieve and what they need, not just from an efficiency of spend perspective, but from the challenges or the questions that they're trying to answer, that sets you on the right foot. Because then, where, if you need your media intelligence data, that's still that sits with, our friends at Commetric. If it's about then setting comms goals and objectives, and then turning some of the data you collect into implications and actions, that's something from an agency side we can play a stronger role with. It may be that we have access to other data within agency that perhaps our friends at Commetric might not have. So a focus on client, I think, then leads to very clear roles and ways of working. And if you can establish those early and just agree on those and communicate clearly, I think those are kind of, from my perspective, the three kind of like tips to have a successful cross agency relationship on a client.
Maya, anything that you would like to add?
Yes, one of the things that really, I think, set the ground very well for this current session is Marian's presentation from earlier today in this room. So to really be open, to learn from other partners and to learn from each other. And this is something that definitely helps us be better in our work and helps then ultimately all of us deliver a better quality product, better quality service to our end clients.
Thank you. Let's open it up to the audience. Do you have any questions for Ben and Maya?
Thank you, guys. That was a beautiful story. I have a question for Maya. Maya, what did you learn from each other?
Through this collaboration, I was definitely super interested to see how Ben's team goes on to develop a really more tactical insight based on the data, to shape it in something that is going to be directly applicable to what the client would end up changing in the way they're talking to key stakeholders. Because we can collect data, we can provide some theoretical guidance and some recommendations, but I'm not a communicator, I'm a researcher, I'm a methodology geek. Tell me all about the methodology and I'll be nitty-gritty about it. But then when it comes to the actual tactical insight, this is something that you really need to know your client well and to be a professional communicator. And this is how working with Ben's team definitely helped me learn better how to do this.
Any other questions?
Yeah, hi Maya. So if you were to partner with Ben or any other partner again for the same collaboration, what would you do differently?
I guess we would start earlier.
Great.
Actually, I think this is challenging. A PR agency is usually the middle party between the media intelligence provider and the client. And sometimes when the media intelligence provider steps in at a later stage, and also sometimes clients need to be guided through the process because they don't always know what they want. So here is the challenge when it comes to communications. So what do you think are the best practices to facilitate comms between between the client and the media intelligence provider to actually avoid back and forth at a later stage?
My personal take is that I mean, companies like us, we work either through a partner with the end client or directly with the end client, and it's very much in the corporate culture of the end client whether they want to have a separate direct relationship with their measurement and evaluation partner, or whether they want to channel it through through an agency. Both scenarios work. And in the case we have a separate relationship with the end client, and Ben has and his team, his broader team, have a separate relationship. This meant that at some point we had to connect, because the client makes the connection on their side, and sometimes it's very internalized, and sometimes we know exactly how they link the two together, and other times we don't really know how the client ends up getting the insight from Ben's team, getting the insight from my team, and how they use it together. I don't have an answer that says this one is the best case scenario, because both are valid and absolutely okay scenarios.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%, Maya, that I think the communication between agency partners and clients, it's probably going to be slightly different depending on the client preference. But the one thing that when you were speaking there, Maya, that kept popping into my head was just this concept of trust. And I think that, you know, building relationships between a Fleischmann and a Commetric, they're all based on trust and knowing that we trust the work that we do, our expertise, and through that trust we have mutual respect. And so I think if you have it that way, that makes kind of the communications easy, whether it's one point of contact that the client may prefer, however they want to channel it. But it also means that when the briefs come in or client questions are posed, that you kind of tackle the question together as opposed to separately, that you cancel the client together as situations arise. So I think just having that trust, that mutual respect, and just working as an extended team is the right way to do it. And I know sometimes that feels uncomfortable, but you'd be surprised over time how easy that can become as you work with fabulous people like Maya and the Commetric team.
Thank you. And actually, I recall it's the first time in the beginning of the pandemic when someone really challenged whether we have to change completely our mindset on what kind of KPIs we use in this very, very special situation. That was exactly Fleischmann. And it was not Ben personally, but a colleague from him, from the PR side, who said, wait a second, are we sure that share of voice metric matter at all in this situation? If you're not in this particular business that is in the spotlight, then maybe share of voice should be completely disregarded as a metric here. And this made me think, oh, right. I mean, I usually am the one who talks about the methodology, and yes, I have to change the methodology. I have to change some of the metrics. I have to change something because he's right. It doesn't make sense at that point. And having this healthy challenging of ideas makes us improve our product and the way it helps the client. And this is why I really appreciated the honest feedback, and then the colleague said, I mean, I don't worry, I didn't mean to offend you. It's like, no, you didn't offend me, you're right. And that's the good thing, because this is why we work together.
Excellent. And for the benefit of the audience, have you already published this case study in the public domain that people can read, or are you planning to?
I think we missed it. It was a year ago. Probably we should have done it last year. I'm not sure whether we can make the cut with the new award entries. We can think about it.
All right.
We both have had very, very well publicized case studies with this with our shared client. going after AMEC awards and other PR awards, even being successful in those awards, but not together yet.
All right. Thank you. Last call for questions. If you don't have any other questions, we shall close the session. All right, great. Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Ben. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone.